Have you ever stopped to think about who actually gets to write history? Today, we're not just looking at a single moment in the past. Nope. We are going way deeper. We're going to explore the story of history itself, how it gets told, how that has changed, and why it is, for sure, one of the most powerful forces shaping our world.
I mean, really think about it for a second. How do we know what actually happened hundreds or even thousands of years ago? Is the history we learn in school a collection of pure, objective facts, kind of like a science? Or is it more of a story, one that's been carefully shaped and crafted by the people telling it? That right there, that's the big question we're going to tackle.
Well, the answer to that question lies in this kind of academic-sounding field called historiography. I know, it's a mouthful, but it's a really powerful idea. All it means is the study of how history gets written, the methods people use, the biases they might have, the assumptions they make, all the stuff that shapes every single historical account we ever read or watch.
So to really get a grip on how we see history today, we have to go back, way back, to a time when the whole purpose of history was, well, it was completely different. Our journey is going to start in the medieval Western world, during what we call the Age of Faith. You see, back then, a historian's job was surprisingly straightforward. History had one single purpose: to prove that every single event, from a huge battle to a bad harvest, was all just part of God's divine plan. The main goal wasn't accuracy, it was moral instruction. And the historian, who was usually a monk, was basically a recorder, not an investigator. And get this, questioning what was written down wasn't just frowned upon, it was literally considered a sin. But a massive, massive shift was coming. You can see the difference so clearly here. The medieval historian was all about showing God's will, and they only used religious texts to do it. But then comes the humanist historian, who wanted to record the human experience, using all sorts of sources. History was changing from this sacred duty, based on faith, into a critical inquiry, based on reason. A total 180.
So how does an entire society make a leap that big? Well, it doesn't happen slowly and gently. This was a rupture, a true revolution in how people saw the world, and more importantly, their place in it.
And the stage for this whole revolution was set by total catastrophe. The 14th century was an absolute nightmare for Europe. You had devastating civil wars, the unbelievable horror of the Black Death wiping out a huge chunk of the population, and a church that a lot of people started to see as corrupt. All of this led to this deep, widespread loss of confidence. The old faith-based explanations for why things happen, they just weren't cutting it anymore.
You can really see how this intellectual revolution just snowballed over time. First, you have that 14th century crisis of faith, which kind of cracked the door open for new ideas. Then, bam, the Renaissance kicks in, bringing back this focus on human potential. And finally, the scientific revolution gives everyone this powerful new tool, a method based on observation, on questioning, on logic. Each step took history further and further away from divine will and brought it closer to human reason.
But here's the really interesting part. This whole revolution, it didn't just create one single new way of writing history. Instead, it was more like it shattered the old model into a million pieces. And what we got was a whole new toolkit for historians, with all these different lenses they could use to look at the past.
Yeah, and this new toolkit was just jam-packed with competing ideas. You had the rationalists, who thought history was all about the progress of human reason. Then the romantics pushed back, saying, no, it's about emotion and national spirit. Then came the positivists, who wanted history to be a pure science, based only on hard, objective facts from primary sources. Meanwhile, you've got Marxists reframing the whole thing as a story of class struggle over money, and the Annales School in France saying, hey, we need to bring in other stuff, like geography and sociology, to get the full picture. All of a sudden, there was no single right way to tell the story of the past anymore.
Okay, so we've seen history go from being a story about a divine plan to basically a field of data analysis. But so what? Why does this whole journey matter to us right now?
Oh, it matters a ton. Because this journey is what gave us everything we expect from modern history. The legacy is just enormous. Using scientific methods to try to be unbiased, demanding a wide variety of sources, rigorously checking if those sources are authentic, focusing on cause and effect, and, this is a huge one, including the stories of everyday people, not just kings and saints. The whole shebang.
And that's really the big takeaway here. Knowing how history is written, knowing its own history, makes us so much smarter and more critical about the stories we're told. It gives us the power to ask the right questions whenever we read a book or watch a documentary about the past. Questions like, who wrote this? What methods did they use? What lens are they looking through? And maybe most importantly, whose story isn't being told here?